From the newsroom of the Bryan College Station Eagle, this is the Brazos Sports PrepsCast. And now, the Eagle High School sports team, Alex Miller and Jake Weiss.
What's going on, everyone? You're listening to the Brazos Sports PrepsCast, a podcast about high school football here in the Brazos Valley. I'm Alex Miller of the Eagle, joined always by our high school sports reporter, Jake Weiss. Jake, wrapping up non-district play for a lot of teams here in the Brazos Valley last week. Gonna get started. District games. These are the ones that really count now that we're getting into this part of the season.
Yeah, I was saying everyone's 0-0. In a weird way, it feels like a whole new season.
Well, we got some big games to look ahead to this week. Later in the show, you're going to want to stick around. We're going to have A&M Consolidated coach Lee Fedora joining us, talking all things Tigers football as they get ready to start District 11 5A Division I action. That's a mouthful. But first, Jake, let's recap, as always, a little bit of action from last week. We'll start with the Bryan Vikings, and we'll also look ahead to some matchups this week while we talk about this. Bryan, they beat Richmond Randall, a first-year program out there, southwest of Houston, 31-10. Rounded out a good non-district slate with a win on homecoming. Mason Rice, linebacker for the Vikings, he had himself a night, 2 interceptions, including a 56-yard pick six. The big news out of Bryan, though, is that quarterback Malcolm Gooden, he's going to be out for at least this week, maybe another week, going to get hand surgery. Jake, that's a tough loss for the Vikings, especially considering who they're going to play this week, Temple, the district favorite.
Yeah, no, it really is. It's unfortunate, too, because I remember talking with a lot of the Bryan players back in the preseason, and one of the questions I asked is just, hey, is there a game you guys got circled on the schedule? And I think all of them said Temple. I think every single player, and they brought a bunch of guys to the media days. I think they maybe had like 10 guys, and all 10 of them said Temple. So, they're really going to have to rally and figure out, really going to have to rally and kind of figure things out this Friday against Temple without Malcolm. That's a tough loss for them.
Yeah, Bryan had the tough loss to Huntsville, but they've responded the last couple weeks. Jake, where do you think maybe the Vikings will turn to at quarterback now that Gooden's going to be sidelined this week?
Yeah, so I was talking with our sports editor, Robert Cessna. He actually went to the Bryan game last week, and he said Malcolm left at, I want to say in the third quarter. You have to go. I'd have to go back and check the story. But when Malcolm was out, they put in their backup, Creed Pierce. He's a senior. He took some snaps at quarterback. I believe he must be the backup quarterback. And then also, I wasn't here for this, but you guys were here last year. And, you guys know Tate Allen took some snaps at quarterback last year, I believe. Right. So that could be another option, I guess. But like I said, I was talking with our sports editor, Robert Cessna, last night, and he said Creed Pierce took snaps and even had a touchdown pass, too. I think he had a 63-yard touchdown pass once he came into the game. So he'll probably be the guy that they go with at quarterback this week.
Yeah, Tate Allen, he was a guy, like you said, last year after Gooden got hurt. They were trying a number of different things at quarterback, and they finally settled with Allen. And during their winning streak down the stretch of the season, he was the guy that was taking snaps under center just as a sophomore then. So, could see some packages with him. Temple, they're a pretty good team, and they've lost 2 straight weeks to 2 ranked teams. College Station 2 weeks ago, 10-point loss to Arlington Martin last week, a ranked 6A team just on the fringe, right outside that top 10 ranking, I should say. And so, the Vikings, they'll miss Gooden, but this is a good team still, and I think this is going to be a really good game. And what I've got my eye on for this one is how does Bryan's defense stack up against Temple's offense? When you look at what Temple's got on offense, I mean, they can get you down the field in a hurry with what they've got at quarterback, with run field, and especially those receivers led by Michael Harrison Pilot. I mean, he is the real deal, 4-star kid. I mean, he's being looked at by schools like Texas and some others. He's going to go be playing Division I football here this next year. So this is going to be a good game, and it stinks for Bryan that they're going to be without Gooden, but, at least they saw some good signs last week from the guys they'll be able to turn to this week as they look to get a really big win to start off district play. Jake, just kind of looking at that District 12-6A, you look around, I think there's going to be some really good competition once we get into the thick of the season. Harker Heights and Hutto, they're both 3-1. They've got some really good skins on the wall, good wins in non-district play. Shocker, Temple, preseason favorite, like I said. And, although the Wildcats, they're 2-2, they've got some respectable losses when you look at the teams that they've fallen to.
Yeah, I agree. Yeah, that's pretty much all I got to say about that. I just agree,
Well, Temple, they're looking to get back on track this week, but Bryan, they're looking for a really big win to kick off district play. Jake, Rudder, they just ripped and roared past Killeen Chaparral last week, 44-14. It seemed like it was an all-around impressive win for the Rangers. What really stuck out to you? You were over there in Killeen last Friday.
Yeah, kind of similar to Bryan. They played a first-year program in Killeen Chaparral, but I got to say, Rudder's defense, I know it was a first-year program, but the defense I thought looked really good. Wasn't a shutout. They gave up 14 points, but both times they gave up those points, it usually came off a long run, like a 60-yard run, and then, they'd make the stop, and then Killeen would just kind of punch it in. So really, like I said, wasn't a shutout, but I thought the defense played really well. I know that's something we've talked about the last couple of weeks is how, and we talked about it with Coach Izar too when he came on last week, just, hey, it's a young defense. I thought they really kind of rose to the occasion last week. And then on offense too, Xavier Ramirez and the wide receivers looked really, really good. Xavier Ramirez had almost 300 yards passing. He had like 292, and he also got pulled a little early just because, they wanted to get those backups in. So he probably could have gotten over 300, if they had kept him in. He had 4 touchdowns. All 4 were to different receivers. Jaquise Martin, we know him. Kevin Holmes, we know him. Pretty much all the usual suspects. Nate Figures, all the usual suspects at receiver got those touchdown passes. Just an all-around win. Defense, though, really stood out to me, but wanted to give a little shout-out there to the offense as well.
Yeah, the Rangers, they're starting District 10 5A Division II play this week. When you kind of look at the landscape of that district, it's kind of hard to figure out when you're looking at how some of these teams have fared in the non-district schedule of who might be the real contenders, I should say, in this district.
Yeah, Lake Creek's 4-0, and then the rest of the teams are kind of about even. We know Rudder's 2-2. Huntsville's 1-3, but we do know we saw it. They did beat Bryan, so that one win is pretty impressive. We know Brenham. We've seen Brenham in action. They can put up a lot of points, especially with Rylan Wooten at quarterback.
Mm-hmm.
And then Rudder's opponent this week, A&M Consolidated. They got a win over Rudder to end the regular season last year. So, and Rudder was a playoff team last year, so it'll be interesting to see kind of where that whole district kind of shakes up and shakes out.
Yeah, Rudder, of course, they're starting district play against Lamar Consolidated on the road this Saturday at good old Trailer Stadium. We had to look up Trailer Stadium earlier, me and Jake. Jake, new to the scene and still in some aspects, so we were giving him the lowdown on all that. But, man, you've just dove right in, and you're like almost halfway through the season, Jake.
Yeah, that does feel hard to believe. I thought I was figuring everything out with non-district, and then it's a whole new ball game. I'm like, oh, now I got to learn all these other teams.
Well, hey, there were some great area games last week, too. I was over in Centerville, top 10 showdown in 2A. We talked about it on the podcast last week, Centerville and Mart. It was a heartbreaker for the Tigers. I mean, they played their guts out, but they lost 21-20. Great game all around, Centerville, they're 2-2. They've got a really tough game against Jefferson this week, and Jefferson, a 3A Division I school. It's going to be a neutral site game on a Saturday at the Tomato Bowl in Jacksonville, Jake. That'll be a great game on Saturday. But, Centerville, Paxton Hancock playing his guts out, really, really laid it all out on the field, had some big stops inside the 10-yard line, just couldn't get it done, couldn't get that 2-point conversion in the last 6 minutes. But, talking with Coach Hardy after the game, he was very encouraged by their performance, not discouraged at all. So good to see that from the Tigers. They're definitely still a true contender there down at that 2A Division I level. Snook, they got a big win over Weimar. Yeah. They were underdogs in this game. They won 20-14. Impressive win from the Blue Jays. They're starting District 14 2A Division II play this week against Runge. Jake, I think you talked to Coach Conway yesterday, if I'm not mistaken.
Yeah, I did. And the crazy thing about that win for Snook is, they were down at halftime. They had to come out and they had a rally to put up 20 points. They put up 20 unanswered points in the second half. Now they did give up a touchdown as well in the second half, so they didn't shut them out second half. But still, they had a rally and put up those 20 points. And Coach was kind of talking to me, hey, we're a little banged up, but the message has been, hey, guys are going to have to fill in and, take on new positions. He talked about the running back position. A guy named Lance Lara is kind of their go-to guy. But, he said, hey, defenses kind of started figuring out he's our guy, so they kind of hone in on him. They had some other guys step up as well at that running back position. And then they even had some guys switch. Sam Smitherman was one of the guys who they had to have take on a new role on that offense. He was I think he was a fullback. I could have that wrong what position he was before, but they basically just switched him over to tight end, and he had a pretty good game. So really impressive win for Snook to rally at halftime, and then not only just rally, but kind of, hey, put guys into new roles and have those guys step up and kind of take charge when they can.
All right, that's going to do it for us, the first segment of the podcast. When we come back, we're going to talk with A&M Consolidated coach Lee Fedora. You're listening to the Brazos Sports PrepsCast. Welcome back to the Brazos Sports PrepsCast, everyone. We're joined now by A&M Consolidated head coach Lee Fedora. Coach, thanks for giving us a few minutes of your morning. Welcome to the podcast. How are you today?
I'm doing good. Thanks for having me.
Well, Coach, non-district's over for you guys as y'all are gearing up for district. We'll get to that here in a few minutes. But, as you kind of look back over the first month of the season, really, what are some of the big things that you've really learned about this Tigers team?
Well, what I tell the guys, you hope for 3 seasons. The first season's pre-district, and then the real season is district, and then you're hopefully getting into that third season, which is playoffs. And, we try to put a pretty good schedule together in our pre-district to see the things that we've got to work on and do better on and that type deal. And we saw that last week when we played Lufkin. They're a talented team, and we got kicked. And so there's a lot of things we got to get fixed. And I think our guys have done a great job during our bye week to get prepared for our real season.
That perfectly leads into my next question, Coach. Kind of a couple parts here to it, but just first off, y'all were off last week, had the bye week. What was kind of the focus during the bye week for y'all?
Well, the focus was to get our minds back on page to where yes, we lost that game and our guys were upset about it, but like we told them, that season's over with. Now it's the real season, and they did a good job being focused. Of course, into the 6 weeks on academics is coming up, and so we're staying on them about their grades and doing that. But we've had a great week of practice. We didn't just take off. We got after it and started preparing and doing the things we did because we're adding some new things that we're keeping quiet and, trying to get prepared for a challenging game.
And then just kind of looking back some more at the non-district, has there been anything or maybe any players that have kind of surprised you and the rest of the coaching staff, through the first month?
Well, on the offense side of it, we've done a great job with our running backs. Keyshawn and Trey Taylor's done a great job. And the things that we've always talked about is, you got to work up front. Offensive line, we've got some great size. We got to do a good job communicating because we saw a lot of blitz coming different ways and that. So those are things we're preparing for. And then on the defense side of it, I've been real impressed with, Mo Foketti at our safety. Trace Meadows done a great job at our safety. Brock Slade at our linebacker, Joey Lightfoot, up on the defensive tackle spot. But, our defense has done a pretty good job. But one thing we worked on all week is wrapping up and tackling and doing a better job at that.
You guys are jumping into district play this week, that second part of the season you were talking about. As you kind of look around the district, a lot of new faces for you guys. What have you really seen from this district in particular in their non-district play too?
Well, we haven't got to see much film besides on the Georgetown. And when you look at everybody in our district right now, you're sitting there, you got Leander that's 3-0. And then you've got A&M Consolidated, of course, ourselves. You got Leander Glenn, you got College Station, and you got Georgetown that are all 2-1. And then you've got a couple teams, Hendrickson's that's 1-2. And then you've got Cedar Park and Eastview that's 0-3. But like we tell our guys, you don't worry about the pre-district. You got to be prepared. I think it's going to be a good, challenging district this year.
Yeah, like we said before, a lot of new faces. We kind of talked about it back in the summer, but now that it's here, what's it going to be like getting to, face a new crop of teams, some teams that you probably haven't really faced off much against before?
Well, what it is, it's kind of like I tell them, it's like playoffs. You don't face a lot of teams you see in the playoffs year in and year out, so you got to get prepared each week, being ready. And, we're facing a good team in Georgetown. They've impressed me with their offensive line. They got a great offensive line. They got a great running back. Defensively, they like to do a lot of twisting and moving around in their secondary and all that. So stuff we worked on all week long.
And, you kind of answered the next question, Coach. I was going to ask, what have you seen from Georgetown in non-district? But you kind of answered it a little bit there for us. But is there anything else you've seen from them so far in non-district?
Well, like I said, I think the biggest thing is they got a power running back. He likes to hit it downhill and he runs hard. And their offensive line to me is the most impressive. And that's where we've got to do a good job up front on our defense and do a good job tackling.
Well, before we let you go, Coach, in your mind, what are some of the things the Tigers need to do this week to come away with a key district win to start off this thing?
I think the big thing is show character. Even when bad things happen, keep your head up, keep fighting, don't lay down. And that's stuff we talked about all week long in our bye week. And on the offense side of it, got to do a good job communicating in our blocking assignments. On the defense side of it, we got to do a good job wrapping up. And we've been doing a pretty good job in our special teams. I've been impressed with that. But I think our guys are focused and they're ready to make a big run. So hopefully we'll take care of business this first week.
All right. Well, that's A&M Consolidated Coach Lee Fedora. Coach, thanks for giving us a few minutes every day. It's always good talking with you.
Thank you very much. I appreciate you guys.
Hey, big thanks again to Coach Fedora for joining us on the show. I really appreciate his insight on the Tigers football team. All right, Jake, final segment. 3 games to watch in the Brazos Valley this week. We're kicking it off. Navasota, they're hosting El Campo, starting district play down in the 4A level.
This is a big one. For Navasota, they kind of rebounded last week with a big win over Huffman Hargrave. They won 42-14. Really impressive game for them. Once again, their rushing attack, I think, is just – I'm real impressed with that every week. I feel like I say that every week. I'm like, wow, they had a great performance on the ground. But just another week for them where they rushed the ball really well. But the challenge this week is they're kind of having to do the opposite of what teams trying to do to them because, teams are always trying to stop their run game. Well, this week, they've got to stop 5-star running back Ruben Owens over in El Campo, which will be a tough task for them, but I'll be interested to see what they can do against them.
Yeah, this is going to be a really good game. I think El Campo, I can't remember what, somebody's a 1-point favorite in this game, and I think El Campo is the favorite in the Harris ratings. So this is going to be a really good game down in Navasota. All right, Cameron, they're playing at Lorena, okay? Cameron, they're in the middle of a really brutal stretch, okay? They're 2-2, but they've lost back-to-back games against state-ranked teams, Waco Connolly and then Belleville. We talked about the pasture of pain last week, Jake, and unfortunately for the Yeomen, it was the pasture of pain for them. And now, they've got a pretty big road game against Lorena. They're number 3 in 3A Division I, state champion last year in that division to start the district play. Cameron's been in some shootouts, but this one could maybe be a little bit closer when you look at the kind of ball games that Lorena's been playing early in the season. So this is one. This whole district, okay. This is probably one of the best, if not the best, district in 3A Division 1. I mean, certainly you've got Franklin at number 1, Lorena's number 3. Cameron, if they had just beaten one of Connolly or Belleville, they'd be ranked. And, Little River Academy's good. I know Rockdale, they've had some up and down games. They lost by that 1 point against Jim Ned last week, a heartbreaker for the Tigers. But I mean, top to bottom, and we've said this before, this is just going to be a really fun district to watch, see how it all shakes out. Especially with, I think from what I've seen, there's gonna be some parity in this district too, in sense of teams being really competitive with each other. So really, really interested to see how this district shakes out starting on Friday with Cameron and Lorena. So, all right, Jake, one more. Burton versus Falls City. This one's at a neutral site in Giddings, remember, because Burton's building their new football stadium. They don't have any home games this year. And this is the one they've got circled, man. This is the one they've had circled.
Yeah, and the crazy thing is, I think Burton's undefeated. They're 4-0, I believe. Is that right?
Yeah.
That's right? Yeah. Okay, I was about to say I'm like
they're up to number 2.
Yeah, number
in
2
2A Division 2 behind Mart, who beat Centerville.
So Burton's 4-0. On the other side of the coin, we've got Falls City, a little bit of a different team than we've seen in the past. Falls City's pretty young. They're 2-2 this year, but once again, I mean, you can kind of throw out the records when you get these kind of big clashes between, rivals and teams that have history. It's kind of just going to be decided, on the field rather than with the record. So I'm excited to see what can happen. Personally, I kind of feel like Burton's going to go in there and get the win, though. It's a little bit of a bold pick there, but I like Burton in this one.
Yeah, I think I've got Burton in this one too. Falls City beat Burton in that region final last year, lost in the state championship game to Stratford in a pretty tough loss for them, a game that got away from them in the fourth quarter. Falls City, I mean, they've just been on this run. They've been so good the last few years, and Burton's run into them a couple times here and there in some really good games at the region final level. But yeah, like you said, they're young. I didn't realize it. I think Falls City, they only returned like 4 or 5 starters from last year's team. So definitely a little bit of a rebuilding year. This is one the Panthers should probably win. So it's gonna be one to keep your eye on Friday night over in Giddings. So, all right, Jake, I think that's all we've got.
Yeah.
I've got to say, for the Consol fans going out there, got to go to 600 Degrees Pizza in Georgetown. Jake, I think I gave you that recommendation, so we'll see.
Did.
We'll see if anybody takes me up on that this week. So if you do, and it's terrible, email robertcessna@theeagle.com. So, all right, Jake, that's all we've got for today's show. You got any final thoughts?
No, I'm excited to try 600 Degree Pizza though, but I might have to email you. I'm gonna have to email Robert Cessna if it's not good pizza.
All right. Thanks for tuning in for this week's episode. Be sure to like and subscribe to the podcast on Apple Podcasts and Spotify. And be sure to check Doodle.com for all of our high school football coverage this Friday. For Jake Weiss, I'm Alex Miller. Thank you, and we'll see you next week.